What's going on, everyone? It's Bales, and welcome back to the AFL Fantasy Fanatics podcast. Obviously, apologies for yesterday with all the audio issues. I'll get it started now, so you guys will be able to listen to it on here, which I appreciate you guys tuning in as always. But also, if you are watching, I will be live just for about 10-15 minutes after the podcast played, answering any questions you guys may have. So make sure you do stay and stick around. I might answer some questions towards the end if we get some. But yeah, appreciate you guys tuning in. But yeah, so without further ado, here is the podcast from yesterday with the audio. So Liam, can you hear? So Monk, just speak.
I'm pumping out a 114 there at the end. But let's first. How was your week? How did you score?
I can't view it at the moment, so that's right. We'll get started, and if I can just sort this in the background anyway, even if it isn't working. So perfect. Let's get it started.
All right. A couple of seconds of blank here and we'll get in. Hello and welcome everyone to the AFL Fantasy Fanatics Round Review. We are recording live on Sunday, the 21st of May, after the completion of round 10 of the AFL season. I am your host and AFL Fantasy Fanatic, Tim Guess. Well, with a lot of different strategies that coaches could have adopted this week, there certainly was a wide array of outcomes. And I know a coach who was certainly wrestling with his options coming into this week was Bales DT. Bales, mate, how are you? How was your week? How did you score and who was your plus and minus three?
Pretty flat, Tim. I don't think I've ever been so flat for scoring a 22-61 in my life. Just the weekend was just, I just didn't enjoy it at all. It was awful. 22-61, dropped 900 spots. I still don't know how I dropped that many spots with that, but yeah, that's how it went, I guess. +3, -3. I think the +3's probably got to go to my boy Rory Laird to see him bounce back to some form of 131. That was nice to watch him go about his business. -3, it's got to go to myself and picking Lockie Ash. I was going Hobbs and Humphrey from Cowan and Hollands, and then I talked to Louis. I'm not blaming Louis at all. It's my own fault. I was the one that did the trades, but he suggested the Ash and Drury move, and I did like it as well. So I was the one that locked the trades in, and it did come back to bite me by about 40, 50 points, plus Drury could potentially be a red now. And I would have got the win over you, which would have been the cream on top, where now it's just the poo on top of a very bad cake. So yeah, so that's my week.
Mate, well, I'm sorry to hear that. Bit of a tough week. I think it was a tough week for me as well. I mean, you did me by 25 points, but I mean, you certainly put up a bloody good fight. We made it, it was pretty close there at the end. But let's firstly turn our attention to a couple of guests that we got on this week. As always, we've got stellar guests. Firstly, Coaches Panel regular MiniMonk. MiniMonk, mate, how are you? How are you ranking? How's your team going? And who's your plus and -3?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was a very interesting week. I've had a pretty good one when my lowest on field was a Tom Stewart. I ended up bringing in Hobbs and Shaft this week for Chandler and Chincotta, which, bit of a bench fix up in the second week in a row that I've kind of done that. And I managed to pump out a 24-19 and I've thrust myself into the 100 and sitting 76th overall.
Come on, what a week, mate. That's massive.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a pretty good week. I suppose my +3 probably goes to... it's a bit tricky. There's three that I really want to give it to, but I probably have to give it to Zach Butters for a 148 on the Friday night. Special mention to Dylan Williams for an 82 as well. And then the -3, look, I might as well just give it to my entire back six. I didn't get a single ton back there. A couple of 70s, a few 80s, and Jack Zeeble top scored with a 95, which is a little depressing. But we take it, we move on, and we start to plan for the buys.
Yeah, cool. Well, turning to our next guest, another spectacular guest. We've got Liam, regular from the Free Kick Pod, mate. How are you? How did you go this week? How are you ranked? And who's your plus and minus 3?
Yeah, look, Bales, if you want to say you're flat, I don't even know how to begin. I am basically below the floor. I had a pretty terrible weekend. Scored a 21-30. And to top it all off, I played a soccer game today and I've injured my foot as well, much like half my team. So it was actually an absolute mare. Unfortunately, it would have been nice if I could have come on the podcast and like the last 2 weeks have scores above 2,400. But alas, that isn't always how it can be. My minus 3, it's got to be Cozzy Pickett. I ummed all week about whether I should use this week's trade to try and fix up Cozzy Pickett and take him up to a premium, using Ollie Hollands, and I elected instead to go for a bench fix-up to take D6 off a rookie, and instead bring in Ben Hobbs, which is fine, and instead I got Cozzy Pickett scoring 28 on the Friday night, when I had also considered bringing in Zach Butters for a considerable portion of last week. So that was pretty grim. And an unfortunate shout out also goes to JJ Johannesson for getting injured on 43. And then my plus 3, I'm going to give it to Jack Steele, even though he's not my biggest scorer, for coming out after a week where he's clearly got a medial strain, he's clearly injured, and pumping out a 114 after he'd otherwise been averaging in the 80s in my side. That was a faint glimmer of hope at the end of the weekend that had started pretty horrifically.
Yeah. So, bit of flatness out there. We've got some coaches like the Monk who are strutting around at the moment with some big scores, but I also had a little bit of a similar week to you, Liam, in terms of mine. I'm a bit flat. I did manage to beat Bales in our head-to-head match, but I dropped. I was 574, I think, at the beginning of the week, and I've dropped to 935. So just under, about 360 places or something like that. So a little bit disappointed with that. I'm going to start with my negative 3. Look, I could give it to myself, actually. Like I kept on telling myself over and over again, just play a straight bat. And then I think I just overthought it. Like I was talking with Bars. I was looping. I had Wardlaw on and basically had Wardlaw with the emergency on him. And I had until the end of pretty much the first quarter before Pedler was playing. And I'd either have to, kind of bring Pedler onto the field in the forward line and rotate someone through. And Wardlaw was only on about 8 points at that point. And so I was like, no, all right, I'm going to stick with Pedler. But Wardlaw obviously came through with the 80 and, so that cost me kind of 40 odd points there. And then, the actual plus negative 3 that I'm going to give it to is Josh Rochelle. He's just not really getting those VAs anymore on the 74. That once again hurt me. And, the other thing I did this week is I could have brought in Bailey Smith, but I bloody brought in Lockie Shitfield and, that cost me a bit as well. So, plus 3. Monk already gave it to Butters. He would have got it from me, but I think I've got to give it to Will Ashcroft. 127 from a bloody rookie. You're loving that. So, he is killing it, and doesn't he look good doing it? That hair, mate. It's just those locks. I still can't get over it. What's Hat Chat talk about? Jack Steele being the best looking man in football or something like that. Surely Will Ashcroft has got to be comparing. But yeah, that was how my week ended up for me. So a bit disappointing, but once again, I'm still pretty happy with my side. We just onwards and upwards. All right, well, that's enough of us. Why don't we get stuck into the games? I'm probably going to ask you guys a little bit more questions this week rather than talk too much about the games myself. I had a lot of work and the kids to look after this today, so I didn't get to watch too many games. But we'll kick it off with Port defeating Melbourne by 4 points at the Adelaide Oval on Friday night. So Salem's return saw Brayshaw get CBAs, but it didn't seem to help his scoring at all. He still sputtered it up. Oliver got attention from Drew, it looked like. And then, I didn't realise that he did his hammy at the end there. But like we said, the night was all about Zach Butters. So, Bars, why don't you walk through it?
I was flat after watching that Butters game. He went absolutely ham. But anyone could take this one. Monk or Liam, which of you guys own Butters? Do any two own Butters?
Yeah, I've had Butters for about 4 weeks now, I think, and he's been okay for the last couple, and then this week he just went off the chain.
Do you think he's an option for coaches to bring in still, even if he might be a bit more expensive?
Jeez, it's really tricky to bring in these guys after their pop score, and I know we'll talk about them later with someone like Zach Merrett, but you're trading into him with that score. Like, you don't get that score now that you bring him in, and unless you really starve other options, like you don't have any other obvious moves, then I probably wouldn't be advocating for bringing him now. He's probably one you have to let pass because he's going to be, low 800s now, and most people are probably pretty stacked on the round 15 buy already.
Yeah.
My only counterpoint there is that if you were going to get him, I'd say this week is the last week, because in his 5-week price cycle, he's got an 88 and an 82, and they start to come off, which does mean that he will rapidly rise in price. So, I obviously a lot of people, and I'm in the same boat, have a round 15 buy issue, but I also think that he's shown the ceiling that you'd want to trade into, and if he's priced at the low 800s, he's still probably priced below what I expect him to average for the rest of the year. So
that's very fair. I also look at his next two matchups, and it's Richmond and Hawthorn at the MCG and then at Adelaide Oval. So that's very delicious.
That Richmond game could be filthy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Rosie was also very, very, very good as well. The 121, so plenty of coaches out to be happy that he put up a good score. Dan Houston, 115 was good as well. I know Depp would be happy with Houston putting up a good score there. So then, Oliver. So if anyone did miss that, apparently he's done a hamstring, and it could be up to a month, but it could be 2 weeks. I think, Monk, I saw you in the chat was saying you heard something about it could be 2 weeks, but with their buy being in round 14, that's only 3 weeks away. I'd have to think that he's going to be out till after the bye, which means that he would be a forced trade for all those coaches that have got him out there, which is unfortunate. But I guess if you're going to get a bullet, you want one where he gets 100 and then goes out and he's at a high price instead of getting a poor one. So, a lot of coaches have to deal with that. Petrarca, a bit poor as well with an 85. But we have to see if he gets forward status next week, which he could. But, Monk, I know you said that you've got Dylan Williams in your side. I've got him. It was painful not being able to loop him onto my field this week with an 82, because another one that if I played him over Pedler, I would have beaten Tim as well. So what are your thoughts on Dylan Williams and for those coaches that jumped on him a couple of weeks ago? Yeah,
I mean, if you jumped on him a couple of weeks ago, you're laughing right about now because he's been really good and he's been getting the kick-ins for Port Adelaide. But he's a player that you'd be looking to ride for the next 3 weeks, and you're flipping him and he's buy. And if you're someone like that you're a bit short on the 14 buy, then by all means, in the 15 buy, then by all means go for him. But I think he's a really risky player for coaches who don't own him.
Yeah. Well,
I'd much rather spend up the extra 100k and go for Hobbs and to go for Dylan Williams.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'd agree. Well, I'm looking at playing him on field this week and benching a Pedler type. So hopefully he'll put up another good score again. Salem, 73 in his return. So probably just a player for coaches to just keep an eye on. But the guy we were keeping on was Angus Brayshaw, and he only dished up a 57. So that was a bit disappointing from him. And then you had Chandler, 68. Gorn, 66 was poor and didn't put up a good score there. And Van Rooyen as well with a 43. So a few coaches may jump off of him. And Liam, you obviously mentioned Cozzy Piggott before 28. I dare say he'll be a trade for you this week.
That's certainly what I'm considering. It was always going to be a risk because he does have a floor in the 30s. And it just turns out that he really hit the floor game just on a week where I was considering trading out finally.
Yeah. That's unfortunate with that one there. But I think that's it for that game, Tim. So we'll move on to the North and Sydney game, which had a bit of controversy.
Hell yes. Sydney escaped with that last-minute interchange infraction, defeating North by 3 points at Marbles. So Sheehan started forward, which firstly had me thinking that maybe his time was done, but obviously turned up in the end there. So, and then many coaches that VC Goulden, but he couldn't manage to rack up that 153 3 weeks in a row, although he still did crack a ton. And then Wardlaw showed that he was the right rookie pick this week and looks like a future star.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, Jai Simpkin with a 115 would have been good for those coaches that jumped on him. Luke Parker 113 as well was solid. Sheasel 112 was great again. So a bit of a role change there, Monk. But what did you find from Sheasel's game, playing a bit more up forward and then through the midfield?
I didn't mind it too much, but it's a bit of a concern that we've had the new coach come in and he's playing a bit everywhere. I would have much rather just see him stuck on that half-back line, but I guess with Hall coming in, they probably had to throw the magnets around a little bit. Again, he's a player that you're looking to probably hold into his bye and then assess then, but I wouldn't begrudge coaches who are looking to move him at his bye, and I also wouldn't say that moving him at his bye is the right move. He might be someone that you can happily hold in your team, for the entire year, because he is averaging over 100. And that is just absolutely crazy for someone who came in at rookie price.
Yeah, exactly right. So he's just been a jet, and he just continues to do his thing. Errol Gordon 106. We'll take 100 for a lot of people, but I thought a lot of people had in VC would probably want a bit more than 106 to lock in a VC, but still to get 100, we still take it. Zeeble with a 95 was solid enough as well. George Wardlaw, Liam, 82. Did you jump on him this week, or if not, I dare say he'll be an option for you next week.
He would be by far and away the player that I've been most targeting as a downgrade option. I think you definitely are willing to pay up, and for me at least, as much as I have a round 15 issue, I probably have a couple of round 15 rookies that I can trade out, and I also traded out 2 last week. So I think he looked the goods. I think the main thing that I saw from him was his tackle pressure. He probably looked as good tackling as we've seen kind of from any rookie this year outside of Ruben Jimby. So I think that will set the floor pretty high on his scoring.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I didn't bring him in last week, but I dare say I'll be jumping on him this week, that's for sure.
The other thing is that, like, if you are bringing him in and you are worried about the round 15 buy, there's every world where he's actually one that you do trade out the round 15 buy anyways, because he does come in at an elevated price. Yes, it's only 3 weeks of cash generation, but that might be enough for him to go from 320-ish, which will be what he is this week, until about 530, 540, which is a pretty good point to flick a rookie at. Yeah,
exactly right. Yeah, he's going to be a good option for a lot of the coaches that didn't jump on him, but all those coaches that jumped on him last week won't have to worry about that. So, scrolling down here, Lachlan McAndrew, 66. For those coaches that got him on the bench, he may get a bit of an extended run there with Laddams looking like he'll be out for a little while with a pretty bad ankle injury there. So I'll be looking at him as a option in round 13 if he's still in the side. But at the moment, I'll see how he goes next week and see if he can stay in Sydney's best side there. And then scrolling down the bottom, Will Gold 29 and Blake Drury. What a spud. Thanks for coming into my team and getting a 14 and probably going to be dropped. Hopefully with all the injuries, maybe actually stay in the side. But yeah, disappointed to bring him in. So, yeah, we'll move on to the next game. Tim, it was at the same time. Very disappointed in my Crows going down to Jake's Bulldogs.
So before we do move on to that game, I just want to circle back to Sheasel. So I think I was listening to this game on SEN or something along those lines. I did hear one of the commentators talk about Sheasel getting some attention early on, and I wondered whether that might have been what inspired the move, like forward or into the midfield. And so I was less concerned after I'd heard about that. Did anyone else hear or see anything about that? I just kind of want to get some confirmation.
I think Clark might have spent a little bit of time alongside him, but it wasn't a tag. Goulden was the one who actually copped attention this game. The fact that he scrounged a 106, I was pretty happy with, because Bailey Scott was running with him and pretty hard. And Goulden is the type of player that backs up a lot of +6s to build his score. He basically didn't get any of those after quarter time until about late in the third quarter.
Yeah, cool. Excellent. All right, awesome. Yeah, thanks for that, Monk. I wanted to know about that. Cool. All right. Well, let's turn to the next game. Right. So Western Bulldogs defeated Adelaide by 45 points at Mars. So you and I talked about this Ballarat game on the Friday pre-lockout chat and how it does some funny things year in, year out. It certainly didn't seem like Adelaide showed up to this game and their fantasy scores were impacted. But on the flip side, 8 Dogs turned up.
Yep, very disappointing from the Crows. Don't get me started why we decided to manage Taylor Walker, who won us the game last year against the Dogs in Ballarat, and he kicked 5 goals last week. So good decision, Crows. You played crap as well. Rory Laird, 131. if there was something to take out of the weekend, it was my boy. Looking back to his,
I knew you would enjoy this, mate.
Absolute fantastic best. 34 disposals, 5 marks, 10 tackles. Took a kick in as well, if you don't mind. And the other thing I got to say, I'm convinced that the umpires hate Rory Laird. The amount of free kicks, I reckon, what's that? 4, 5, 6 of his last 9 games, he's given 3 free kicks again away. So I'm convinced the umpires don't like him. But MiniMonk, is he a good option for coaches to be looking at bringing in? Because this was about the time last year that this is where Laird won on his big run. So is he a good option for a coach to look at?
He is one that I'm very much considering. He does have the Lions this week and then Gold Coast the week after. And then 3 weeks after that, he's got West Coast, Collingwood, and North Melbourne. And so, yeah, I think him and Merrett are the 2 big premium mids that I'm very much looking to target soon.
Yeah, agreed. I think he's a great option for any coaches that don't have him out there. And he's got that. He's just in the midfield the whole time. So, great option. Bailey Dale, Liam, 130. And the fact that, apologies, Tim, but your boy JJ Johannesson going down and scoring a 130 and then a 106 last week, down at 651 is going to be close-ish to 700. Is he an option coaches could look at?
Absolutely. We've seen now that when, there's, this is now kind of proves what we've seen, which is when JJ is scoring well, Bailey Dale does not. And then Bailey Dale, JJ plays half a game and Bailey Dale looks like he did last year and 2 years ago. He's down. He's going to be down before price changes this week, 150k at 650. I could very conceivably go JJ to Dale and just say, yeah, I'd like that role again, please. I'll just have it with exactly the same price player.
Yeah, he's a tempting option, that's for sure, because he's cheap and it just depends if that buy does work for you or not. So coaches will look at him. Bailey Smith is a guy that I think a lot of coaches would look at with a 121. Time on ground was up at 88%, which was good to see. Tim I know you said you didn't watch too much football, but with that game time up a bit, he looked really good. Is he an option that you are going to look at in the forward line, or is that round 15 buy maybe a bit of a stumbling block for you?
Look, it's a little bit of a stumbling block because I have got a number of round 15 players, but at the same time, I think I've got enough trades to get through it. I'm devastated I didn't go Bailey Smith this week. I was just, nervous about Bevo, doing Bevo things, but he got the CBAs. I didn't see much of this game, but, I looked on the AFL app and saw that he got 15 CBAs. So that's kind of what I needed to see. So, I think probably for me, he'll be a target. Although I am a little bit worried about Trelaw coming back. But, I'm just devastated to jump on this week.
Yeah. Well, I'm probably glad. No, wouldn't have mattered because I would have lost anyway. So Tim English, 121. He was good as well. I'm sick of watching Tim English do well and me not get him, but I will be getting him in the next fortnight for Sean Darcy. So I'm looking forward to that day when I can do that. Jack McRae, 117, put up a decent score as well, but from what it seemed to me, he's still got that weird role of that half forward wing sort of in midfield. So I'm not sure he's an option unless he gets forward status and puts up more scores. Bont, 110, got a bit of a knee concern, but Luke Beveridge said he's all good, so he should be fine moving forward. Jordan Dawson, was the first game that I'd seen in a while. It was probably his actually worst game since his first game for the Crows. Actually turned it over a few times and didn't look great, but again, no one should be stressing about Dawson. He'll still be a top 2 or 3 defender. And then the final one I asked you about, MiniMonk. A few people asked me about Patrick Parnell. So backed up his 100 this week with a 77. He's cheap. Is he an option that coaches could look at, or is it just due to the fact that he's played the Bulldogs and the Saints and he's 2 good games and you wouldn't go near him?
Yeah, just played the Bulldogs and Saints, which are about the 2 friendliest teams for halfbackers and wingers to rack up against. I wouldn't be touching it, not at this time of the year.
Yeah, I probably tend to agree as well. Luke Pedler was a bit underwhelmed with a 46. Still played a good role, but just didn't score well. I was really, really concerned about that matchup and probably should have just backed Dylan Williams on field, but that's all good.
Just on that, Bales, it looked like Pedler got those CBAs again. And in fact, I actually think that he's kind of eating into Rochelle's now.
Yeah, so are you looking at potentially moving Rochelle on this week, Tim?
Oh, I'd love to. The reality is I'm probably going to have to just do a one down, one up with Johansson. But yes, I would very much like to be getting that turd out of my team. He's just stunk it up.
He's a bit harsh, mate.
Well, he's just stunk it up for me ever since I brought him in, basically. Yeah. I think he's possibly cheaper now than he was or he will be this week than when I bought him.
Yeah. Obviously, you got JJ as well, so you'll be. Unfortunately, that looked a really bad one as well.
I can't be too unhappy about that. JJ's been spectacular for the last few weeks. Okay, he's injured. That happens.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah, because he was looking really good.
He was.
We'll move on to MiniMonk.
Can we not move on, please? I'd like to give a special shout out to Riley O'Brien, who I unfortunately have had this season. I didn't like at the beginning of the year the fact that Darcy would be sharing with Jackson. I can admit that I'm wrong now, but Rob hasn't been truly horrific. But to score 114 with 63 hit-outs against Team English.
Yeah.
He looks absolutely incredible. Now, he doesn't kick it enough and he doesn't possess the ball enough, but I'll take it if he can get 63 hit-outs a week.
Yeah, no, it was a good performance by Robbie. Probably one of the only Crows players actually decided to show up to Ballarat. I think the rest of them stayed in Adelaide. So, but yeah, we'll move on to the next game, Tim. MiniMonk's Dockers up against Geelong with a good win.
Yeah, Freo defeated Geelong by 29 points at Optus. Kind of looked like the Freo of old, and their fantasy scoring certainly looked like Freo of old as well. And then it was nice to see Tanner Bruin sitting as the top scorer for Geelong, 93.
Only 93.
Yeah, exactly. Only 93, which very ordinary game fantasy-wise.
Very, very classic Geelong. Very classic.
Yeah, exactly. Man, they're just so kind of. I was just kind of looking at them preparing for this, and I was like, oh my god, they're just so relevant this year.
Well, MiniMonk, I actually go to you for this one. You can probably take this game away because obviously you're Dockers. I'm sure there's plenty of Dockers that you want to talk about here. So far away, mate.
Yeah, I mean, Brayshaw and Sarong have proven that there's two premium midfielders at Freo that can both score at top 8 levels. Very similar to how the Dogs used to have McRae and Dunkley do it and how Melbourne used to have Oliver and Petrarca do it. I don't see any reason why these two can't both be top 8 midfielders, especially with the way that they're playing the game. I thought Sean Darcy was beat up a little bit and exposed around the ground by Segler and Blitzarves, and I think that hurt him a bit. Blitzarves was used as a bit of a negating role at times, so I think he'll bounce back and be a bit better. But the matchup next week against Gawn and Grundy will be a bit scary for him. Going down the list, O'Meara was good for those that went for him. I think that he's getting the midfield clock, but I'm not sure how much confidence I'd have with him. Ryan and Young kind of fell back to earth, especially Young. I was kind of concerned with him. He built his score really late in that game with some junk as the heat was taken off. And as an owner, I'm very concerned about his role going forward from here. Johnson came on as a sub and managed to scratch out a 40, which isn't too bad. He's going to be hard-pressed to find a place in the 22, though, so I'd be very hesitant with him. I'd be looking to move him out potentially at his buy and just cash in what little he's made. And then Fife is coming down a lot in price and might be one for us to consider at some point off his buy if you're looking for a really cheap upgrade at round 13. He's going to be sub 500k. And he's getting CBAs and they're slowly building his time on ground. So he's one definitely to monitor. On the Geelong side, I think the only really relevant player is Tom Stewart. I guess Sam Simpson to an extent. But Tom Stewart got injured. Not injured. He was very poor during that game. And I don't know whether it was the game style of the Cats or whether he was just having an off day. But the fact that he managed to scratch a 72 was actually quite good considering how poor he looked at some points. He wasn't getting off the chain. He wasn't getting under the +6s. I think the Cats as a whole just looked really poor. He's definitely one that we're looking to hold, especially with the fact that he has the round 13 bye, but it might be a monitor because he might not be a top 6 defender from this point onwards, and that might be an interesting move to jump off him early, especially with his high ownership.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, there's plenty of... I was impressed with Johnson when he did come on as someone on my bench, and the fact that he got to a 40, as you mentioned, was good. Just hopefully he can, as you said, might be struggle to get back in, but hopefully he can get in and perform well. So we'll have to see what happens there. And yeah, if anyone did miss it, Mitch Duncan didn't play. It's another hamstring injury. So hopefully no one brought him in and they reversed his trades. But
what a shocker, Mitch Duncan and soft tissue.
Yeah, didn't see it coming at all. Never saw it coming. So yeah, I reckon that's pretty much everything. As you said, not much to go on the wrong side.
I was going to say the one thing that was good is that Mitch Nevitt managed to score a 57 and hold his spot again. And he is one of the few rookie options that are out there for that round 13 bye. Him and Humphrey. I think the fact that he managed to hold now, I think this is the third week in a row, is a potentially positive sign. Now, not 5 weeks in a row, sorry. But I think the thing that might pull him down is the fact that Geelong absolutely sucked in this game. And I saw a tweet from Swamp saying that there has only been 2 ever times. Since 2009, this is the first game outside of 2020 when no player on a team has had more than 20 disposals. Like Geelong could not get near the ball.
No.
Is Nevitt still an option to bring in, or do you reckon he's too expensive?
He will now probably be too expensive, but for those that did jump on, I actively considered it, but with Jim Cotter going out, it presented an option for me to go just straight up to Hobbs using Jim Cotter and Cowan. So I didn't go there, but in a very, very bad week for rookie options, and given that, we hadn't seen Woodley yet, and he was at less than 40k, he was about 40k more, he was one I actively considered.
Yeah. And yeah, Tim, I think we'll move on to the Saturday night games.
All right, yeah. So now we're starting to get into games that are a little bit more relevant. So we'll start with Brisbane defeating Gold Coast by 43 points at the Gabba. So it was a pretty low-scoring fantasy game from Gold Coast. Rao, once again, just like the Geelong game, Rao's top scored with only a 90. Primo's did poor, but some of those popular mid-prices like the Rat King, Fairini, pretty solid. And then on the flip side, the Brisbane midfield went big, including, we talked about before, Prince Charming with his 127.
Will Ashcroft is an absolute gun. That is just, he's so good. Those little plus sixes he was working for, 127 points. And Liam, we were, a lot of people have said that, we're going to trade him in his round 12 bye and that's it. But I dare say we've probably got to keep him longer than his bye.
Yeah, I was actually having this chat and this afternoon. I think the fact that he has shown 100+ ceiling kind of changes that analysis around trading out rookies, which is you need to consider potentially trading this player out because a good rookie score is in the 80s, but what you actually want to do is kind of get off early enough to avoid the real basement scores and go as quickly as you can to a premium that has basement scores in the 70s and a ceiling of 120 plus. Well, it looks like that Will Ashcroft actually has that 120 plus ceiling. And it was unfortunate that a couple of weeks ago, at around about the time when you start considering having no rookies left on field, he scored that 61. But outside of that 61, he's gone 115, 109, and 127.
He's a monitor for me. I think he's one that you can consider trading at his bye, but he's also one that you consider trading after the buys are over. And I think it very much depends on how you're shaping up for that round 12 buy. If you're going to be pretty good to getting 21 on field, I think he's a consideration to hold purely because of his matchups after his bye. He's got Hawthorn, Sydney, and St Kilda, and then Richmond and West Coast. That might be the friendliest run for inside midfielders that you'll see in any team at any point in the season because the Hawks give up points, the Swans are depleted, the Saints give up points, Richmond give up points, and West Coast give up points. And 3 out of those 5 games are at the Gabba as well, where he has shown he is much better at scoring than he is away from the Gabba. Like, his highest scores have all been at the Gabba. That 115, that 109, and the 127 have all been in Queensland. So, yeah, he is definitely a strong consideration to hold post-bye.
Also, I think he has 2 bad matchups for the rest of the year in Geelong and Collingwood because I don't know if Melbourne is as restricted as they once were for midfielders. Like we just saw what Butters did. And Willem Drew, actually, if I'm remembering correctly, like there were some actually decent scores from midfield. Yeah, you got Willem Drew 106, Connor Rosie 121, Zach Butters 148. For the rest of the year, Brisbane have a great run. It's actually insane.
Well, speaking of that great run, so you've got your Josh Dunkley, who pretty much everyone's got, but if you don't have him, he's a good option after his bye. But I wanted to talk about Lachie Neale. So he's been very up and down. Pretty much every second week he's been going under 100, but he's now put back-to-back tons in a row. He's going to be pretty cheap post-buy, so probably not a play next week. So we're talking about these guys the week after. Is Lachie Neale an option, Tim, to bring in as a cheap buy?
Yeah, look, I mean, certainly. I mean, I know I'm starting to look at targeting those mids. We seem to have a lot of forwards. We seem to have a lot of defenders in our team, and I think the thing that's really going to set us apart, or teams apart, is who get those big dog mids in. And I mean, he's certainly got the potential to be one of them. Particularly if he can start stringing things together. And we haven't seen the. I mean, the concern is always him being a tag target, but we haven't seen the tag be as prevalent this year as we've seen him in past years.
Yeah. Are you boys looking at Lachie Neale and also adding Hugh McCluggage into this? Obviously, he's a lot cheaper as well.
I probably would have Neale much higher than Hugh McCluggage on that list. But I think we're really spoiled for options off of that round 12 bye. I mean, we're looking at the likes of Fremantle, Sydney, Brisbane, and St Kilda coming off of that bye. You're talking the likes of Brayshaw, Sarong, Neale, Sinclair, Steele, Parker, potentially Mills if he comes back from his injury and starts playing good spots, even Lloyd. And I don't see Cluckage being a top 8 midfielder from here until the end of the season, but there is a world that Neale is. And at his price point and coming off of his bye with the run they have, especially down in the season, he definitely falls into consideration.
Yeah, I agree. I think, McCluggage has never really been that guy that's full-time inside mid, whereas we know Lachie Neale was playing midfield and that's it. So I do like him as an option. Bailey Humphrey, MiniMonk, I know I was bloody spamming your DMs about Humphrey this week, and I really liked him. I didn't follow my advice. I knew he was a good pick, and I should have gone there. But I'm assuming probably still too expensive as a rookie. But back-to-back 90s, what do you make of Humphrey moving forward?
Man, it's really hard because I think you were spamming my DMs. I was spamming a few others as well. He was someone that was very much in my considerations this week, and I actually spent down because I thought I might need the extra cash for this week, and turns out I probably won't, unfortunately. But he was great. Like, I didn't get to see it of this game, but the fact that he's had a really consistent scoreboard across the quarter, only scoring poorly in the one quarter where Gold Coast were beat up a bit, it's a pretty good sign for a player like that. But we do have to remember, and I know that this is very, very easy to forget, it was a weird game weeks ago that he was subbed off on a 0. And this is something that can happen to rookies. Yes, that means his price is going to go through the roof over the next couple of weeks, but I'm wanting to hold him after his bye. Flipping these sorts of rookies their bye, then they really have to be someone that you're flipping quite early on after that, or they're going to be on your field. And I don't really want to be fielding Humphrey after the buys.
Yeah, I tend to agree. But he was awesome. I watched this whole game, and he was just everywhere. It was painful to watch. It just McPherson was 85, was solid. Rory Atkins 84 was good as well for all those coaches that have got him in the side. He's just need to make good cash, and I don't think he's going to get dropped. I think he was one of the better players again. So he was good. Fiorini, it was good that he had a big last quarter. Otherwise, he was on for a poor one. Did some good things off the ball. So I'm not sure if he gets dropped or not. We'll have to see. But played 92% time on ground, which was good to see. Noah Anderson, 79. Liam, are you worried about him moving forward? Because that's a couple of poor scores back to. Liam, you're on mute, I think.
Sorry, mates. I am a tad concerned by the fact that it's kind of now starting to show that teams can put some attention and a body on Anderson, and it really can limit his impact and the likelihood that they're going to be able to win games. And as much as he looks incredible, I almost think that he will look better once Torella comes back. I think his ability to put consistent scores together is hampered by the he gets now. Yeah.
You're not trading him. I don't think he's still got that really good, but could be something that hopefully can put some good scores up through those buys, because there's been a couple of sort of average performances with a bit of attention thrown in those. Wilmot, 74, very, very happy to take his score and bench Jinby, which actually worked out well. We'll get to him when we talk about that, but gained about 50 odd points there, which was nice. One of the positives from the weekend. And scrolling down, Harry Sharp got subbed out on 52. I was a bit surprised he got subbed out off. He played quite well before he got subbed out, but clearly Chris Fagan didn't agree. So we'll move on to the other game, Tim, which was a very, very, very high-scoring fantasy game.
Yeah, so dream time at the G. Essendon defeated Richmond by 1 point.
Bloody
Taranto
result, I must say.
It was a great game to watch.
Yeah. I haven't watched it yet, but it's certainly one of the ones I'm going to watch.
Even better in person.
Oh, you lucky bastard. You were there, were you?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, lovely. Mate, that ceremony beforehand, I did get to see that before I went out. That was awesome, hey, with the Richmond and the Essendon players.
Oh, it's like Dreamtime is like second in my mind to Anzac Day for the kind of best spectacles in Melbourne outside of the finals.
Yeah, great. Well, look, Taranto continued his ton run, and then obviously big scores from Merrett and probably surprising scores from Ridley. And I mean, there might be some coaches out there that recently dumped McGrath, and he finally came through. But probably the question here was, and I'm interested to find out from you guys how Hobbs went.
I'll actually I'll throw to Liam for this one because I did it for Monk. So we'll do throw it to Liam for the Essendon players. But I just got to say, come on, McGrath. Like, really? You got to do this now when I get rid of you? Like, thanks. And everyone else that got rid of him for that matter. So, but yeah, Liam, take us through the game, mate.
Yeah, so I think the kind of overarching thing to take from this is the Bombers massively overpossessed the ball during this game. I think they doubled Richmond for uncontested marks, which is why you see Jordan Ridley there with 14 marks. He had 12 possessions in the last quarter. You've got McGrath with 12. You've got Dyson Heppel scoring a 92. You've got Nick Hind with an 84. There's Brandon Zerk-Thatcher with an 82. The Bombers were holding onto the ball a lot, and that's why you see some massive scores. You got Zach Merrett looking like the gun that he really is and showing that ceiling that we all know he has, and is massively underpriced given what we've seen him do in the past at going into the week below 900k. I think Jordan Ridley, like if you somehow still stuck with him in your team, and I know that former hat winner and current housemate Bono has actually been forced to hold him because of injuries recently, so he managed to get that 127. And Tim Taranto, I truly don't think he will get enough props for what he's done this year because 80% of the comp has him in their team, and therefore it's not a bit you can't really crow about your point of difference. But he managed to put together 120, and he did that off the back of only 3 tackles. He is a bloody good bowler, and Kane Corn should be embarrassed to have called him outside the top 150 players in the comp because that was bloody outrageous.
Yeah. He's the second highest point scorer in AFL fantasy for the year. He's only 8 points behind Tim English, which is absolutely crazy given how dominant English has been this year.
And I think I was just going to say, like, I remember this happened a couple of years ago with Roy Laird when he was a defender and everyone just had him, and he was absurdly consistent at over 100. I would dare say that what Tim Taranto is doing this year, if you looked at the total variance in his scores away from his average, it has got to be one of the most consistent for anyone ever averaged over 100.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, he's been fantastic. Everyone knows last year my relationship with Taranto wasn't great after bringing him in for so much, but he's definitely made up and then a lot more. He's been awesome to watch, and as I said, I don't get how Kane put him outside his top 150. He's definitely probably top sort of 20 for this year. He's been fantastic. Anyone else from there?
So,
well, obviously Ben Hobbs
was the flavour of the week this week.
Jai Caldwell was the other guy that I liked. I wanted to get your thoughts on as well. So maybe put those two in the same sort of basket.
Yeah, so I think Jai Caldwell is an incredibly good footballer. And it's been very frustrating as a Bomber supporter to have him sit at half forward and just incredible at these forward 50 stoppages because he's got some of the cleanest hands for the Bomber, for the entire team. I would almost say that if Dilchiel wasn't there, he'd have the cleanest hands in the team. And it's been, he has had CBAs now 2 weeks in a row. I thought that part of the reason, and it kind of, last week when they played Brisbane, he put some tension into Lachie Neale, which is what he'd done last season as well, and that's what I thought was the reason why he got CBAs. But then he was, I think, in the top 3 for the Bombers this week, and I think there was some comments from Brad Scott this week saying, "Oh, you know, we've only really begun to realise like how good Jai Caldwell is." So at below 600k coming into the round, I don't know if he's necessarily going to be a target just because we do have some really great forward options at the moment. But if you are super cash strapped, I think you do a lot worse given the role that he has and the fact that I do believe there'll continue to be points on offer for the Bombers.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout, especially actually even more so than Hobbs, because Hobbs wasn't in that main rotation. He was about the fourth banana in the string.
He got high 20% CBAs, whereas Caldwell got high 70% CBAs.
Yeah, exactly. But then there's also the flag that if Shield comes back in, it's probably Hobbs that starts to lose the CBAs. But the thing that I think that the coach will like was the fact that Hobbs was tackling. He wasn't one of the ones that got involved in a lot of those +6 change and wasn't one of the ones that benefited from the play style that Essendon had. He was actually involved and at the coalface and working hard. So that could see him stay in the team for a bit longer. Well, not just stay in the team for a bit longer, but stay in that role for a bit longer. But I think both Hobbs and Caldwell would be good pickups as a forward line option.
Well, because I didn't obviously jump on Hobbs last week. I was actually contemplating, do you go Caldwell over Hobbs with the more probably certainty on the CBAs, or is Hobbs just because he's just so good at finding the football and racking up points? Would you go the cheaper guy?
I would.
I'm not sure.
I would be going Hobbs, if only because we have seen in his short career, but if you look back to his junior scoring, he has been an elite scorer. He's been an above average scorer for what you would expect in pretty much every game he's ever played. Whereas I feel that there are times where Jai Caldwell can go missing. I was an owner of him at the start of last year, and there are just some games where he does kind of go missing at the CBAs, and he is a little bit more expensive. And I do think that some of the comments from the coaching staff are almost a concern, which is to say that they weren't really thinking about him that much, and therefore I think he may drift from focus where Ben Hobbs he was pick number 5. There's still going to be a lot of interest in getting him into the midfield. And I like the fact that even though without DDAs, he still had 7 marks and still had 6 tackles. The only thing that was frustrating is that he had 16 hand passes. But I still think he looked very, very good getting around the ground. And I think it would probably stand to reason that a lot of his points aren't reliant on CBAs.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. He worked into stoppages. He was quite often that play that was coming in off half forward into the test, and after there was a repeat stoppage, he'd be the one that would involved, or he'd be pushing up to the stoppage when it would happen on a wing, which I think is fine. We've seen plenty of players be able to score really well with a role like that.
And I think someone like Hobbs speaks to why CBAs can be a misleading statistic, because what Jake Stringer does is he is there basically as a designated hitter at centre bounces. He looks to burst up from the stoppage. That goalie kick corner is exactly what he's meant to do. It's basically like you should be trying to exit out the front of the stage. If you don't get the ball there, then just keep on jogging to the forward line, and someone from the wing and from half forward will fold into his spot in the midfield. So it's a Nick Martin and it's a Ben Hobbs, who are quite often players who are then just chasing the contest around, and then Stringer is sitting more up forward.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how Essendon go moving forward. Tim, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of players where, CBAs can be not a great indicator of their scoring, did Short play in the midfield or did he play back?
I believe he played back.
He was back.
I think CBAs, I think he had 16 CBAs, so he might have been 50-50 split. Yeah, I had a look at
it. Yeah, no, you're right, he did. Yeah, I think it was a bit more of a split, but he seemed to get a lot of the ball off of that half-back line. So even though he was getting the CBAs, he'd roll back at stoppages and be the one who was involved in those plus six change when they were switching the ball. I mean, I believe his score build was heavily on marks and kicks. Yeah, 15 kicks and 7 marks.
Yeah, so maybe it wasn't so much like last year, that sort of midfield where he'd push more forward. It was maybe that midfield role pushing more back. So it'd be an interesting watch over the next couple of weeks. Tim, we'll move on.
I was just going to say, if anyone is going to consider trading in Jaden Short, I would just want to be certain that he's not going to spend any time for it, because he is a dud as a forward scorer.
Yeah,
agreed. Tim, we'll move to the Sunday games.
All right, well, just a quick reminder. Look, if we've been through a game and we didn't talk about a player that you want us to stick it in the spaces below, and if there's a player you want us to talk about that we haven't come to the game yet, make sure you stick in the spaces below to make sure we count them all. But next game, I think we just skip the next game, really. I'm
wish.
glad I didn't see this game. I'm glad I didn't see it. How the hell did Hawthorn defeat the Eagles by 116 points at your stadium? I don't even know how to talk about it.
Can I answer this question? How did they manage to do it? Because they're a football side.
Oh,
I was actually going to say West Coast were lucky it was only 116.
Really? God.
Yeah.
I'm glad I've missed this game. I don't think I'm going to watch it. I mean, why would I? Oh, Jesus. Anyway, let's get into it. A couple of popular rooks returned. Look, the interesting rook was Weddle, who had an absolute monster. And then, of course, on the flip side was Ginners, who had a 24. So I don't know if something happened there. Sheed and Sick Dog seem to have had a field day. But then, speaking of days, Day hasn't been that great since returning from his suspension. So it'll be interesting to find out what happened there.
He got a lot of attention.
Which I think is an excellent call. I think that's an excellent call. That's about the only good thing that Simpson did today was have O'Neill tag Day, because Day is a very high impact player. Now, it didn't help that if anyone was watching, John Newcomb looked like potentially like he was literally walking around witches' hats, and so it didn't matter that Day was getting the ball, but Day copped a lot of attention today, and that's why his scoring was down.
What's it going to mean next week is the other thing that I'm interested in, with Simpson showing a propensity to use a kneeling and tagging role, with them playing Essendon next week, with the popular target being Merrett.
Yeah.
Just one to monitor.
It's one to flag.
Simpson loves his tags. He loves his tags.
But I would say that I have a distinct feeling that is probably the only time Will Day has ever had a tag in a meaningful game of football above under 6 days.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, he copped a lot of attention. Just a mention to Dom Sheed, friend of the show, mate. Come on, you could have done this before when we were in the team. 139 points. We all knew that he was capable of this. That's why a lot of us started with him. But he's doing well. I don't think you can pick him, and I think most of us would agree he's going to be over 700k, and it's just sort of not quite sure what happens with the Eagles there. But Connor Nash, who I did actually have a bit of a look at a few weeks ago, he's just continued another 130 points. He's been low-key pretty solid over the last few weeks. Sick Dog returned to his 120 plus ways with 125. But the one I'm interested in, Alex Witham with 125. So Tim, as a West Coast man yourself, mate, he's got that role. I know you probably didn't watch too much of it, but he's under 650k. He might be a bit over 650k now, but is he an option that's cheap that coaches could look at, or are you just not touching any Eagles whatsoever?
Oh, look, he's got a history of high scoring. I mean, he absolutely butchers the ball. We've got Herney and we've got Barras out at the moment, so I imagine that's why he's getting that role. I don't know that I like him as a long-term role. He's very risky. I'm not sure that that's the kind of play he should be going to, and we do have a lot of other players in that kind of price bracket.
Park, fat pockets. He wrapped it up in the second half. 80 points in the second half, including 46 in the last quarter, when the Eagles were basically just trying to not concede. Like, I don't want a bar of him at all. As you said, it's the only Eagles that you kind of want in your team at the moment are any rookies that are playing, and even then, that's scary.
Yeah.
That's funny. The way you said that, Monk, was just like you didn't want to have anything to do with him personally or fantasy-wise. So, Witherden, it's interesting, but maybe we're not on him like maybe a couple of other people might be keen. Josh Weddle, 102. Everyone was talking about maybe paying up for Seamus Mitchell this week, but I think a few more people might have to be speaking about Josh Weddle. I know Ridge was on the coach panel saying that a lot of people in your Supercoach and Dream Team missed Weddle, and a lot of us probably have. He's going to be over 400k, and he's probably going to be too expensive. But he does have Saints this week, so could put up another good one there for owners. Cam McKenzie, 94 as well, another Hawthorn rookie that racked up, and Seamus Mitchell, 85, all did well. I just saw actually Will Day got added a tackle, so up to 86 points, but still not exactly what we wanted. Warple, 84. Has anyone here got Warple still in their side?
Still got Warple.
Nope.
Are you looking potentially offloading him, Liam, or is he a guy you're probably just going to roll to the bottom and then offload?
Well, given the injuries and the Cozzy Pickett problem that I have, I am not looking to trade out Warple. I'm also going to say that he had at least 2 very soft free kicks given against him on tackles, and so that 84 very quickly becomes a score in the 90s. I'm not too fussed with an 84 when I've got other mid-prices scoring 28.
Yeah, exactly right. Jaden Hunt did really well. I remember seeing him in the mid-20s at half-time, and he got himself to 80. So if you've still got him, you'd be very, very happy with his save late in the game there. And then just scrolling down all the way down here, obviously you had your Chesser return for 37. Got better as the game went on, but was very, very quiet in the first. I think he had a 0-point first quarter as well. And shout out to JS as well, who's in our chat. He played Ruben Ginby on the field over Seamus Mitchell, which was unfortunately a bit of an unfortunate one there. So with Ginby, I think I don't even have to ask anyone here. You can definitely get rid of him now. His break-in was 36, and we thought we could hold him to the bye, but 24, his break-in's going to be up with a 60 now. So yeah, you can trade him because he's at a price to move him onto someone. So
yep. Rookie rep for a reason.
Tim, can I ask
exactly
you,
right.
Can I ask you a question? You're at West. At what point is Simo actually going to get asked about why he still has a job?
The club has been very clear that they're going to keep Simpson and have him do the rebuild. There's no point bringing in a new coach to do the rebuild.
Okay. How on earth can they stand behind that? Because that was the most ropeable football I have ever seen.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is a whole other podcast, right? We could talk about this for a while. I mean, the short version is I think we had another shot at a premiership in around about 2020, and held on to a lot of our aging stars, and then did it again in 2021, and now we've just got no young talent coming through.
I would argue that you do have young talent coming through, and they are either injured or playing out of position. I don't know why you would say, okay, Noah Long, you played as a midfielder when you were a junior and a little bit of forward. The way we're going to build your confidence in your side is we're going to bring you straight into a team that's going to score 24 or 26 points, and you're not going to get anywhere near the ball. I only ask this because, again, it's funny, but mainly because at what point do you go, I don't know if I want to trade in any West Coast fan, because there's a reasonable risk that the coach who currently coaches there will be fired and roles are going to change and things can go wrong. Because seriously, it is ropeable the degree to which they are at an absolutely terrible club. And even if Harley Reid does end up there, I cannot imagine he would be sitting there going, I'm going to sign my 2-year extension for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not so worried about that. There's a lot else going for West Coast that will have players like that stay. But look, I think if we continue to perform like we did this week, I think there could be more pressure on the coach. But at the same time, they've been pretty staunch in their position. But yeah, like I said, it's a whole other podcast.
Well, on that note, we'll move to the following game.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so Carlton were defeated by Collingwood by 28 points at the G. So I've got some questions about this. I'm curious to find out what the Cox and the Cameron mix looked like. I'm also curious about the midfield mix at the Blues with, I know Doc top scored there and Chera was close behind. And then, I mean, Kennedy had a 54-point first half, but then obviously trailed in the second half, and Walsh was a bit quiet on his money.
Well, the first thing I want to say, because I did see this in the group chat, I don't know if you boys watched the game, but Sam Doherty looked like he had a bit of a hamstring concern, but came out to finish the game. Is there anything to worry about for people there, or is he all good?
Just monitor. It's the same as what happened with Oliver.
Oliver, yeah.
Because Oliver pulled up with his hamstring being sore late in the third quarter and Friday night. Got scans and comes back with the hamstring injury. Doherty obviously played out the game, but there might be every chance he gets sent for scans. So just monitor the news and just be aware. I don't think many people will have him anyways, but it might just be a flag for if you're wanting to bring him in.
Yeah, well, he was good as well with a 124. Chera, Dossie's boy, had a good game again. I know Dossie's listing there, so Chera with a good score with a 119. Going down here, Darcy Moore, just a bit of a shout out. I think he had intercept marks in with 11, so he had a 110. So he was awesome. I think I know who'll get the 3 votes in this game when it comes around. Walsh, a lot of people probably jumped on him this week with a 90. I think do you still have that role where he was up forward and rolling into? Is he probably a good chance at this point to still get forward status?
I didn't see him as much today, but I still think that he's nice to get forward status, and I think that it's definitely one to consider if he gets forward status, but he looks more like a post-buy target now than a pre-buy target. Yeah,
I'd agree. Yeah, he's very expensive now, and getting to that point where we're probably looking for those obviously value players to get us through buys, and then obviously targeting people post their buy as well. So moving down the list here, so Nick Dacos copped some attention from Ed Kerno. Still got his 27 touches, but obviously the 0 marks with his attention. But 79 is fine. He'll have obviously better days than that. He's been obviously amazing so far this year with a 111 average. And then going down there, Liam, do you want to talk a bit about the Cox and Cameron split there? Obviously, they both played sub 70% game time, with Cameron being a bit managed in his first game back from injury.
Yeah, I would say that we saw a lot more of Cameron starting as the ruck in at centre bounces. But I think watching this game, it was pretty clear that his tank is not fully built out at the moment. He didn't look like he was getting to as many stoppages as you would like around the ground. And, you're not having a great day when Mark Pitnet's able to that rucky. But I would also say that this game was a not particularly high stoppage game. And also, there were not a massive number of CBAs either. Carlton were very inaccurate. So I would say that if you were interested in Darcy Cameron, I think this kind of score justifies you saying, no, I can wait another week and see, and then potentially go.
Yeah, exactly right. I think he'd be a solid target through the buys if you can. He's obviously match fitness back in a couple of weeks, and take that sort of number one role and stranglehold on that. Matt Kennedy with a 78. Are we sort of with the 78? Is anyone still interested in bringing a Matt Kennedy in with that role, or is it just with Carlton sort of just playing so poor at the moment that we're just not really confident in a guy like him because he could be sub at any point?
His first half was really good, and then when they made the substitution and took Hollins out of the game and brought Hewitt in, he fell off. And if that signals to me that there's too many cooks in that Carlton midfield, and there's every chance that he gets a sub game, there's every chance he's subbed out of a game, I don't want any part of it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the sub you just mentioned there, Ollie Holland too, I think it's been solid for them, but the last 2 weeks he's been subbed out, particularly, which is a bit bemused me in a way, because I'm sure there's been a lot of other passengers in Carlton's team compared to Ollie Holland. Was there a reason, Monk, that he was subbed out, or was it just that he was the unlucky casualty that got subbed out?
I think he was just the unlucky casualty.
I think this is
I think they just needed an injection.
I think it's actually that this is their management strategy, because he's clearly in their best 22, but he's obviously a first-year player, and they need to be able to manage time and make sure that you can come out of the bye still feeling fresh after having a quasi break, because I think he looked better than Matt Cottrell, and he's the other wing that will come up the ground. He'll be playing as a wing as well, and I think that this is their way of making sure that he's still fresh, because I think he actually looked really good when I was watching him.
Yeah,
and
I agree, and he looked good as well.
I would say as well, for anyone that made the smart decision and held Chincotta, Jordan Boyd looked atrocious in the first half, and I think his direct opponent kicked a goal, 3 straight goals in the first and second quarter. So I would be extra surprised if he held his spot, and I would expect Chincotta to come back in.
Oh, great. Got really moving this week, and that just makes my trades even worse. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to Chincotti coming in. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it from that game. So we'll move on to the final game.
Oh, sorry, can I just say on...
Yep.
Sorry, I was just going to make a quick note on Dicey Cameron. Obviously, he got 57, very low time on ground and ran out the game really slowly. He comes into Goldstein this week, which is a very tough matchup for Ruckman. But he might be a very interesting one to trade into on round 12 because he comes up against the Eagles, who I don't know if you've looked up at matchup charts, but Ruckman against the Eagles is the number one matchup in the game. And the number two matchup in the game is key forwards against Ghost. He could go on an absolute tear in that game. And if you see his time on ground go from 64 this week to maybe low 70s or mid 70s against North Melbourne, he is one that I would be very much eyeing off for a round 12 trade-in.
According to DFS Australia, over the last 5 West Coast key forwards go plus 17 points against West Coast. I
was looking at the last...
plus 11, plus 12.
The last 10, it's plus 24% for Ruckman, which is actually ridiculous.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, you're right. Plus 24 points for Ruckman.
Yeah, definitely one to look at in round 12. And yeah, we'll move to the final game. The GWS Giants take on the Saints.
Yeah, defeated by St Kilda by 12 points at Giants Stadium. So there was obviously concerns hanging over both Steele, and there was probably a bit of a concern with the sub for Marshall, but they both ended up fine. I've been Whitfield hoping for the sweet sugar against like defenders get against the Saints, but it just didn't happen. And then Giants midfield, Cogs and Green scored well. Kelly a little bit quiet, but still up there.
Well, I think that. So we all gave our -3 to other people, but I think the -3 has got to go to the people that organised Giant Stadium and everything around it, because that surface was atrocious. I saw Cornelio slide and slip over like probably 10 times in the first quarter alone. And they've got this Easter show thing every year, but it's like, it's a football stadium. You should be playing AFL games and not some Easter show. So they come back and they had like a VFL game just before that as well, and then that sort of tore up the surface, and then this one. So yeah, a bit of a -3, and shout out to you guys. Got to get your act together, mate. But yeah, so Jack Sinclair was awesome in this game. 141 points. I looked at him as an option, and Mark, you were talking about before about these post-buy targets. I think if someone needs a defender, I think Jack Sinclair, high up on targets, I imagine.
Absolutely, he will. As is the other Jack in that team, in Jack Steele. I think, as we were talking about before, St Kilda might have got their act around a bit, and both of those players were absolutely off the chain today. So definitely ones to monitor for round 13. Wouldn't be bringing him in this week, though, because they're coming into their bye the week after.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and it was just the fact that I brought bringing in Steele myself. I think 3 weeks ago now.
Gentlemen.
Tim, how are you, mate?
Evening all.
Boys, how are we?
Sam, how are you, mate?
Liam's on mute. Not sure if he's
Mark,
with us
how
just
are you,
yet.
mate?
But...
Not too bad.
Hey guys, I'm assuming that finished because for some reason it was playing again. I'm assuming that it all finished. So yeah, if it did, then great. But if it didn't, then yeah, it wasn't too much. We were just talking about trades. I'm hoping it finished. Let me know in the comments if it did finish. But yeah, apologies. The audio wasn't the best. I was around trying to get audio working and everything. So yeah, it was a bit of a shambles, to be honest, last night. But yeah, I'll get through these questions anyway. So if you are watching now and you've got any trade questions, any other questions in general, put them in the comments and I'll be here for like 10, 15 minutes. I don't think it actually finished. It says an hour and 11 minutes. So I don't even know what it would have got up to. An hour and 11. So that would have put it at about an hour and 16 minutes.
He would be happy with that 93.
Yeah, so it's probably like 10 minutes ago. What I'll do, I'll play the last 10 minutes for you guys. Apologies. This has been a real shambles, this episode. It'll be a lot better next week, but I'll play the last little bit here and then I'll answer your questions. But as I said, get your question below and I'll answer them in about 10 minutes' time when the podcast finishes. Just couldn't quite get me over the line with our matchup with Tim. So I'm sure we'll get into that when we go to the Content Creators Cup after this. But Cogs 114. You'd be pretty happy with him, Tim. Got you over the line in the matchup between us two.
Yeah, mate. Look, I think he's a little bit, out of those kind of top five forwards, he's kind of the one that's probably a little bit more unique. And he does tend to yo-yo a little bit, can be a bit up and down, but overall, I'm still very happy, averaging over 100. Yeah, he's kind of just ticking along there.
Yep. He was good as well. Tom Green, 111 again, just being solid as a rock with his sort of scores. So he was very good. Rum and a good matchup. Had a better half or sort of better last three quarters. Was a bit quiet in that first quarter there. Josh Kelly, 97. Liam, is there a little bit of concern with Kelly? He's not sort of playing that full-time midfield role. He's sort of been a little bit out on the wing. Is there any concern there, or you still think he's going to be a good enough score that even if he's a little bit on the wing, you still think he might be that top 8 to 10 midfielder?
I still think he can be that top 8 to 10. The one thing that did have me scared and why I don't think he really hit a ceiling score is he kicked that great goal in the first quarter, and then it looked like as he was doing it, his legs slipped a little bit, and he was getting his groin looked at during that time. There was a couple of times he was running after a stoppage and he looked like he was only running about 85%. It looked a little bit proppy. So I actually have more concern about something like that he's carrying an injury and that therefore makes him a trade. And by having that round 15 bye, if it does sound like if it does look like he's kind of been pushed out, then he could potentially be, if you're really, really stuck and you do need to shuffle some premiums to make sure that you have enough in that round 15 bye, he could be one that you do trade.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I thought he was really good. I thought he was a bit slow in that second quarter, but he built back into the game quite well late on into it. He had a massive spurt in the third quarter where he got about 20 points in the space of 6 minutes. Yeah. And if he didn't have that poor second quarter, he would have easily gone about 110. And he's been really consistent as well. Since he's come back from his concussion, his lowest score was a 79 against the Hawks. Every other score other than that has been over 100. So a 97 this week against the Saints. Yeah, not a massive concern. If you own him, it's fine. If you don't own him, it's fine.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, he's been solid. But yeah, just sort of talking there as well. Stocker with a 93. Holding on to him, you'd be happy with that 93 from him there. Lockie Whitfield, 86. Still had 30 disposals, but had 20 handballs and only the 4 marks. So, Tim, I think you'll be good moving forward for both of us with some good scores.
Still got a good run.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So he'll be fine. It was 20 handballs is not really what we wanted to see today. Brad Crouch, it's a little bit of a concern now. Another 79. I don't think he hasn't gone over 100 since round 5, and they've all been since Steele's been back. But I've always tend to think that Crouch still scores well with Steele. So for anyone that's got Crouch out there at round 12, are you moving off of him, or is he getting to a point where he's going to be too cheap that what are you really going to go to?
I think you got to move.
Yeah, would you be doing it this week, or would you be waiting until he's bye?
You could do it this week. I mean, it's all about what you can do and what else you can do in these sorts of situations. If it's not this week, it's next week. He's not a top 8 midfielder. He's not even close to a top 8 midfielder. And if the player's not going to be a top 8 midfielder and he's clocking up a mid spot like that, and he's bleeding cash, he has to make his way out of your team.
Yeah, I agree. Philippou put up a solid 70. I'm just looking up the CBA numbers and seeing if he actually had any midfield time. Because that was the one thing I was interested in with Max King coming back into the side. So it's good to see Max King back for the Saints. So I'm looking at CBA numbers here. CBA's Philippou only had one. So, yeah, it doesn't actually matter too much. But he was solid. If anyone still has him floating in their side. Crap, lost my screen. There we go. It's back again. Finn Callum with a 66. If anyone's got him, Liam, would you be maybe trading Finn Callahan now? He's sort of just doing his thing, but maybe probably not the scores to make a lot of cash, or are you probably holding him to his buy and then moving him on then?
Look, every team is obviously different, and these kind of players kind of sit on the cusp, but I would be looking to trading into someone that has a lowish break-even where you could get some sugar on for a 3-week run, 3 to 4 week run before their around 15 buy, if that's possible. Because Callahan, doesn't really look like he's got the ceiling this year as much as I think he'll be a go in future years. But I think the main thing I would take away from this game is that GWS had quite a low total score. They only scored 14-10, and they were quite noticeably looking to move the ball a lot faster and not chip around the back. And so you weren't seeing a lot of switches where Whitfield and Lockie Ash were the kind of point men. Lockie Ash was able to score okay during this game because he was kind of running behind Kieran Briggs to be able to take some kicks. And they weren't really looking to chip mark. And I think this actually might be the case with St Kilda for teams going up against St Kilda going forward, is we've now seen that to push St Kilda, you actually do need to try and move quickly because their defensive structure is very good and they can beat you going back the other way. So you may as well just try and move it fast.
Well, yeah, so Lockie Ash was the next one there. Very, very disappointing. Just 64. I was bringing him in for a buy play, cash play. A lot of people said it was a good move, but very frustrating that he couldn't put up a good score. Even 18 points more would have been a lot better, but yeah, unfortunately.
Look, he was a player that I was considering very highly this week. The 3 players that I really considered for a lot of this week were Merrett, Ash, and Hobbs. End up going on Hobbs, but yeah, I think that's really unfortunate for anyone who traded into Ash and even traded into Whitfield as well. Both of them looked like good plays, had a good run to their buys in terms of their matchups, and the game style just wasn't there for the Giants.
So that I'll throw that this question as a newly Ash owner, which I'm not even the biggest fan of him. I brought him in. I know why I did. But is he still a hold? Are you still holding him to his buy because he's shown that he's had the role, or is today a little bit of a concern with them moving the ball forward a bit faster?
I'd say
he's a really tricky one.
I'd say he's a hold,
yeah,
because they've just lost Haynes and Himmelberg for at least a week, and he looked terrible in that first half when they were both playing. And then I think he scored like 45 points in the second half. And
34 in the third and 13 in the last.
He was about the only player on the ground, or only player ever really, that I think actually managed to bully Lockie Whitfield out of a kick-in. So I think that speaks well for his ability to score in future weeks, and they do have a good one. I think that the change in game styles probably speaks more to what you need to do against St Kilda to be able to have a chance to beat their defensive structure. If you see a 3-week run where they're moving the ball a lot faster and you're not seeing a lot of marks in transition, then I think it would be worthwhile considering a trade. But I think it's pretty telling that the most marks they had was Jesse Hogan with 7. That means a key forward.
Yeah, great. So Tim, I reckon that's it for all the games there.
All right, well, let's move across to the AFL Fantasy Content Creators Cup, proudly brought to you by Infinite Wealth. So helping you reach your financial goals faster. Where winning coaches will get $5,000 for their favourite charity. And just a reminder, there's also something special for every coach available too. So head across to infinitewealth.com.au/AFL Fantasy. So that's the only place where you can go get this. So it's specifically set aside for AFL Fantasy coaches because there's a program that you guys can get that I sell for up to $3,000 to people. So you can't find it on the website because I don't want the public to get this $3,000 course for free, right? So it's only available for AFL Fantasy coaches. It's a 5-module online learning program. There's printouts, there's exercises. Basically, you get to work on your personal financial situation as you go through the program and have your money working harder for you. There's even people you can reach out to for support. So learn how to pay your mortgage off up to 3 times faster, how to save thousands on tax every year, and how to build your wealth and replace your income. So that's infinitewealth.com.au/AFL Fantasy. So some big movers in the top 8 this week. So luckily, lockout is open, so we can go through it. And look, the other thing I wanted to say as well is that normally when we're doing this, sometimes lockout's not open, so I'm trying to figure it out just by looking at all the individual teams, and I often stuff it up, but it just goes to show how competitive everyone is and how important everyone rates it. Because if I stuff it up and put someone in the wrong place, mate, I get tweets, DMs. Like last week, I think it was Louis was meant to be
Louis,
yeah.
He mentioned that to me on Friday night.
Yeah, I love how important I guess it is to people. So, but let's start at 8. So we got Louis at 8th, and he's ranked basically 6,500. We got Junk Time Janitors, which we're still not sure is Doe or Nug from Break Even. But they're ranked. We know it's Alex, but which one is it, Doe or Nug, right? Right. So he's ranked 5,000. We got Miller from Break Even, who's ranked basically just above 3,500. Sanch is ranked at about 2,400. Statesman, with his big move with Rowan Marshall a couple of weeks ago, has unfortunately slid out, and he's now just sitting inside the top 2,000. But here are the big movers this week. So firstly, Mitch from Ball Boys. He has flown up the ranks and is now into 1,600. But the biggest mover of it all is Destroy. So he is now basically just inside the top 1,200. I'm still holding out number 1, but I did slide by 360 odd to just 938. So inside the top 1,000. So starting to get a bit juicy and tight there at the top there. So it'll be interesting over the next couple of weeks. And then also just a big shout out as well to Mitch, who highest score of the week, 24.04. So that was a big score from the round. But yeah, look, the next thing I want to do is I've had a look through the questions there, guys. I'm going to do this a little bit different from what we've done last week, because I know we kind of typically just ask you for your trades before we wrap up. But I rather than just, I do want you to tell us your trades or who you're looking at, but I also want you to tell us maybe a bit broader. Who do you think are going to be the key trade targets this week? So maybe, Monk, we'll go to you first, mate.
Oh, jeez, putting me on the spot.
Yeah, I know it's early, man. I know it's early. So, and look, maybe you got no idea, but if there is anyone that you kind of, paid attention to, or now's on the radar, or you already know you're going to be looking at this week, let us know.
Yeah, look, I think people will be looking for people off of I'm really making a meal out of this one. You're looking for round 14 and round 15 players at this point. I don't think there's anyone from Geelong or Gold Coast that are putting their hand up, aside from maybe Humphrey, if you're really needing a player for that buy. So you're looking at the likes of, and if you look at a list of who scored well this week, Zach Merrett is going to be on everyone's radar, Zach Butters as well. Rory Laird is up there,
Hobbs.
Bailey Dale's up there, Hobbs is up there, Smith is up there. Wardlaw, even Sicily as well, has shown that he went back to his role, and there was some interesting comments from the coach after the game, which make him an interesting prospect as well. So these are the types of players that I'd be looking at. And then if you're looking at downgrade options, you're always looking at what's the lowest break even of players. Wardlaw has an 82, his break even's now at 6, but he does come into the Pies matchup. I still think he's a buy if you're looking to buy him, but if you're wanting to spend up, Weddle and Humphrey both have a lower break-even. Weddle's break-even is -4 and Humphrey's is -3. Even Lockie McAndrew as the ruck forward, now I know he has a round 12 bye, has a break-even of -2.
And he's
So-
what is 220 odd grand? What would he be? I don't.
230k. Now, I think
Yeah.
McAndrew is a player that you're probably picking up at round 13 if he's named in that Swans team instead, because
Yeah.
that's probably the better time to see it and make sure that he actually does play that third game and does stay in your team through the buys. But it's a really interesting conversation as to which of Wardlaw, Weddle, and Humphrey you pick up, because if you can afford to spend up for the other rookies and wait a week on Wardlaw potentially, it could be a play. I'm not saying it's the right for every
Just wouldn't want
team.
to
You
miss
might
him though. That role is juicy.
You absolutely wouldn't want to miss him. He is going to make a lot of money, but it's the question is he going to make a lot of money this week? Is he going to have a fieldable score if you need to field him this week? So just look at all of those parts of the equation before you trade straight into him.
Great advice, mate. Great advice as always, mate. Before we go, where can people find you, mate?
They can find me on Twitter at MiniMonk10 and back on podcasting now that I'm back in the country with Coaches Panel.
Come on, man. Great to have you back, and thanks for joining us this week as always, mate.
Cheers for having me.
Welcome. Liam, mate, what about for you, mate? Any other trade targets you want to throw in the mix there? On mute, mate.
Sorry, lads. All I was saying was, unfortunately, Monk talked about 47 different good options there, and I actually disagree with a single one. I would maybe add a Jai Caldwell at 620k coming off that super high score in those CBAs as being an option. And I presume there's going to be a lot of questions in the next few weeks about Bailey Humphrey, Dylan Williams, and Seamus Mitchell, just given the ceiling we saw from them and the fact that they all don't have round 12 buys. I still believe that their break-evens of -3, 15 and 14 are going to make them players that we're going to have to consider.
So what do you reckon you might do this week, mate?
Oh, look, it's crap because Cosby gets 547k and Jason Johannesson 645, and I might also have to watch out for Bontempelli. So at the moment, I'm probably going to try and turn into one of them, JJ into a Bailey Dale, and then the other trade, I really don't know. I really am, and I really don't want to put my mind too hard into it because I think it's just going to be driven by injuries.
And sorry, mate, what about Bont?
Oh, so the Bont did have a bit of a knee concern during the game.
Okay.
And so
All right.
it probably isn't as serious a watch as we had with Steele last week, where it was pretty clear that Steele had been injured and had that medial strain. But it's just one where, again,
Something to watch, yeah.
something to watch. And I'll be watching Josh Kelly as well because that looked like a little bit of an adductor or a groin problem. I've just gone from having 2 great weeks in a row to having a really crap one. But hey, at least Rolly O'Brien can finally score more than Ron Marshall.
And Monk, I didn't ask you what you were probably looking on this week, mate. If you're still there, mate.
Yeah, I'm still here. Look, as I said before, I think the targets that I'm looking at are probably either Merrill or Laird. I need a midfielder that has around 14 buy, and both of them have great runs. And I'm leaning towards Merrett at this stage, despite the Xavier O'Neill tag, just because it's probably the defensive play. And then I'm going to be downgrading to a rookie, and it's most likely going to be Wardlaw, again, because it's the defensive move in my position. But I will also be considering the likes of Humphrey and Weddle because of their lower break-even. And yeah, it'll make for an interesting week. I think there'll be a few different options. I think those will be the consensus kind of trades.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, mate. Liam, mate, where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter at Liam AFLW Fantasy. You can also find me on the Free Kick Fantasy AFLW podcast. It's obviously deep in the off season at the moment, but we are in the process of recording our interviews with some players. Got some very interesting emails flying into my inbox with some of the clubs for some very highly rated players potentially on the podcast coming out in the preseason. So just keep a watch out. Follow us.
Great news, mate. Great news.
Love it.
The guys follow us on Free Kick W Pod is the Twitter account there as well.
Awesome. All right, Bars, what do you reckon you're going to be doing this week, mate?
Oh, mate. To be honest, I might almost do the trades I was going to do last week, bringing Humphrey and Hobbs in. Just doing a week too late. But yeah, It could be those two. Obviously, Jinby's got to go. He'll probably go to Hobbs. And it could be, Pedler to Humphrey, or if I want to maybe cash up a bit more, I could go down to Wardlaw and just get Wardlaw in. But Humphrey with that low break even, also Weddle, they're the guys I'll look at. Maybe the round 14 buy of Weddle could be interesting. So that might be why I might consider him. And then also the round 13 buy with Humphrey. But we'll have to see. Very, very tough, but I was trying having to do those trades that I could have done this week. But there you go. But Tim, mate, what are you looking at doing?
Mate, so for me, it'll be JJ out, a rookie down, maybe Pedler, which means I can probably go all the way to the top. I don't know. I'll have to look at my options. Maybe a Merrett, maybe a Laird. Maybe a Brayshaw.
Jump on,
I've
Tim.
got to have a look at a few threes. Yeah. Maybe, mate. Maybe I will now. But we'll have to see how the research going on. But apart from that, obviously, big thanks to our guests for coming on this week. We love our guests. We always get great guests, and we're always thankful to all of our guests for coming on. But of course, we're also thanks to all our listeners thanks for joining us. In particular, those that sent in players. You can send your questions and make sure you follow us on Twitter at AFL Fantasy Fans. Don't forget to tune in each week. We've got the pre-lockout chat we normally do on a Friday, about an hour and a half before lockout, and of course, live on Sunday. You can listen to the Spaces, or you can catch our podcast, AFL Fantasy Fanatics, wherever you get your podcasts. And please subscribe to the pod and give us a 5-star review. Bales, where can people find you?
People can find me at BalesDT on Twitter and trulybailshd on YouTube. And also the next pod, I will get it right this time. I got it wrong last week. Next week will be live an hour later because I will be at the Crows and Brisbane Lions game, hopefully with the Crows' response after a very poor showing yesterday.
Hopefully my team can fucking bounce back as well. It's what an absolute nightmare. Anyway, well, thanks for everyone joining us. We'll catch you all the same time next week. Thanks a lot, and see ya.
See ya.
Awesome.
Sweet. Apologies again, everyone, for the poor audio at the start. I did listen back to it, and it did get better as the pod went on. But just a bit disappointed that it didn't do too well after that. But I'm sure we'll get it fine next week. So appreciate you guys tuning in. But I'll get to some questions now. So again, as I said, we've got a few people watching now. So if you've got questions, put them in the live chat here. I'll probably go for like 10, 15 minutes answering some questions. We've got some bit of a news coming out as well in the last couple of minutes that Clayton Oliver looks like he'll be out for 2 to 3 weeks with a hamstring injury. So Melbourne have been a bit vague with it. I've read about it. It's sort of could be anything from 1 to 4 weeks. So something to watch if you're an Oliver owner. But I did see a couple of questions with Oliver here. But we're getting these questions. As I said, put them in the live chat. I'll go for 10 or so minutes, 50, maybe even a little bit longer, depending on how many questions we got. But get them in the comments and let's go through them. So first one comes from Franklin Teo. Says, is Pedler to Jason Francis okay? I wouldn't do that, to be honest, Franklin. I just don't think Horn Francis is an option. He's played well. He's had some good scores, but he's very much an impact player. He doesn't have a ceiling, really. Anything over 110, I don't think he's going to get there. He's played amazing in games and essentially got nearly 3 votes in a lot of games. And, he's only got like 90. So I personally wouldn't do that. Pedler could outscore him in any week as well. So, I'd want to be going Pedler to someone else. I'd rather Hobbs if you can get there. I'd rather Caldwell. I'd rather those 2 guys, especially over Horn Francis. But, I think there are better options personally. James Crabb, 99. Thoughts on Clary to Merrett and Jinby to Hobbs? I like it. I do. I like it. Obviously, getting Merrett, who's got the good run, and then you're getting Jinby to Hobbs. I like it. Tick, tick. Obviously, just the one thing, buyer beware with Merrett. He might get a tag this week by O'Neill. We saw O'Neill go to Will Day last week, and he did a pretty good job in quarters 2 and 3 and kept into only a bit less than 30 points. So that would be one thing I'd say. If you don't have a Laird, I'm still a big fan of Laird. This is a good week to bring him in. This is about the week that Laird went big last year. So if you don't have Laird, but James, you may already have Laird. But I'd tick it off. Merrett I like as well, and Hobbs I like as well. Brody Dicko have got 2 options. Thoughts on Data Merrett and Pedler to Wardlaw. Second one would be Fiorini to Josh Dacos and Pedler to Wardlaw. I like the Pedler to Wardlaw trade in both. I'm not really a fan of Data Merrett or Fiorini to Josh Dacos, if I'm being perfectly honest. I wouldn't be trading Will Day. He got tagged. He still got himself to an 86. He's been not amazing last 3 weeks, but look at Dacos has gone 2 sub-100 scores in a row. So Actually, I don't know if it's 2 in a row or if he went 2 in his last 3. But Dacos he's still been amazing. But I'm just saying that I don't think I'd be trading Day. Like, he's still averaging 95 for the year with only really one huge score. And you're getting Merrett, and it could be that, and especially the fact that Day's got St Kilda this week, so it could be an out. Dacos, 3 times in the last 4 he's gone under 100, but obviously a few tags there. So I'm just raising the point that defenders aren't always guys that are going to score over 100 in every game. So I wouldn't do that trade. And then I don't really think I'd do Fiorini and Josh Dacos either. I know Dacos has been doing well, but if you're going Fiorini, you're wanting to get to someone pretty big, I think, with that buy. So I personally would probably look for another trade, Brody. But I do like the Pedler to Wardlaw, though. I think you'll make cash there. Franklin Tio says, or go Pedler to Humphrey. Yeah, I'd rather Humphrey over Horn Francis, 100%. Humphrey's going to make more cash. He's got the better buy in round 13. So, yeah, I'd rather Humphrey and save a little bit of cash there. We're doing that. So, yeah, I like that one better, Franklin there. Matthew Salt, is Merrett a must-get for his run into the buys? I don't think he's a must-get. If you got him last week, he was obviously amazing, but I'm a bit worried about the tag potentially this week for him. I think he's still a good get, and I think he's still a good buy. I just don't think he's a must-have. I don't really think there's anyone that's a must-have in fantasy. Maybe Wardlaw's close to a must-have. I don't think he's a must-have, but he's close, just because of the role he's going to have and how well he scored with low game time, and it's only going to improve. So I'd say Wardlaw's the closest thing to a must-get this week. But yeah, I don't think Merritt's a must-have, but still a good option. Dylan Harvey, have Jinby and Chandler. Both of them can go. Can one go all the way down to 200k rookie and just afford Baslenka? Roll looks good. I'm pretty confident he keeps his CBAs, or go Hobbs in for Jinby and the down as well. I think, Dylan, it depends how heavy you are on your round 15 buy for Bailey Smith. And then it also depends on how your bench is looking. If you've got a heap of players that have got healthy cash, then I think if Faye gets named, which he got 42 touch on the weekend in the VFL, you could go all the way down to Faye and then go up to Baslenka. But I think I would rather do Jimmy to Hobbs and then go Chandler maybe down to a Wardlaw if you don't have a Wardlaw, or a Humphrey or a Weddle, to continue that cash gen going. And then in the buys, you can make these upgrades moving forward. So I'd personally rather go for Hobbs and a cheaper guy there. I don't actually mind going the Hobbs and Caldwell double and getting both, because Caldwell has got a good role and they've got a good run. So you could go both, but I think the Humphrey and Hobbs play, or Hobbs and Wardlaw if you don't have him, I think that's the play for me. A couple of comments here. Obviously, the audio wasn't great. Yeah, apologies again for that. It was a shambles last night. I thought that the stream was going to work, and then it didn't work, and I was busy trying to type on the computer in the chat, trying to get people to see if it was working, and then that was moving my headphones around, which made it all crackly. So again, I apologise for that. I'm sure that this week will not be as bad, and hopefully my trades will be better this week. Shannon Page, Johannesson and Cowan out for Wardlaw and Hobbs, but me holding Lockie Ash. Can he come back? Only got 64 after 2 tons. So I'll start with the first one. Johannesson and Cowan to Wardlaw and Hobbs. I like it, because even though you probably want Johannesson to go to a better player, so part of me is just like, well, if you could do another rookie like a Pedder or a Jinby, if you still got them, Shannon, down to Wardlaw, and then you can go Johannesson up, that would almost be what I'd rather do to get more points. But I do like this play where you're getting a Roo's going to make a lot of cash, you're getting another guy mid-price is going to make a lot of cash, and you're getting rid of a red dot. So it's pretty much cash gen. You're getting points on the field, and I think it's a tick. So in terms of Lockie Ash, obviously I'm an owner. I brought him in last week, which was very frustrating that he couldn't put up a good score. I'm holding. I'm not trading him out after 1 week. I think that'd be a bit reactionary. He could put up a ton this week, especially with the fact that Himmelberg and Nick Haynes look like they're both out this week. So that's obviously, and funny enough, when Himmelberg and Haynes both out in the second half, that's when Ash started getting going. So I'm holding. I know it's Geelong tough matchup. Then he does have a good run after. I know he's got, I believe he's got North Melbourne. I believe Richmond could be in there as well, and maybe Fremantle. I want to say those 3. Yeah, Richmond, North Melbourne, Fremantle after that Geelong matchup. So I'm holding. I think he'll respond. I don't think he's going to be that bad moving forward. And the fact that I'd mentioned it on the podcast, obviously just before, that I was saying
I'd still disagree with the fact that they allow the Giants Stadium to have these Easter shows and that every year. They had a VFL game on before, so it chopped the ground up. Players were slipping. They didn't really want to do the chipping around because it was too dangerous. Because if a player slips, the ball goes over their head. Players could be in for an open goal. So, yeah, I could understand why they didn't chip around. It's just disappointing that that's what they did. So I'm holding, and I think he will respond with a better score this week because it's not like Giants have got all these running halfback flankers coming from the VFL to come in. So you'll probably get maybe a Keith comes in, but he'll play a key defender role. He's not going to be playing like this rebound defender. And then you've maybe got a Josh Fahey could come in as well, which I'm pretty confident he does come in. So he'll be an option to bring in as a downgrade option. But I think that that's good for Ash and Whitfield because they will both go well. So even if it's Geelong, I think they can still score okay there and then well moving forward. Tim Ashworth, is Hollands to Humphrey okay? Yep. Yeah, I don't mind that. Obviously, Hollands subbed out 2 games in a row. Saying my stream's having connection issues, but I'm sure it's fine. I've got it running on my phone just to make sure that it's running okay. No idea why it's coming through that, but it's going fine. Holland Humphrey, yeah, I like it. As I said, Holland subbed out in 2 games in a row. Humphrey, negative break even, is going to make cash, got a good buy. So, yeah, tick, love it. Aaron, Christian, love the show, gents, on holiday in Ireland, South Australia, mate. Hope you're having a good time over in Ireland there. Off in Dachauer, scores 23.76 and lost in our league. Bloody hell. Oliver and Powell for Butters and Smith if Oliver is out. So Oliver and Powell, Butters and Smith. If it works for your buyers, I don't mind that because obviously you're getting 2 potential keepers there. The question is, do you have too many forwards? Because you bring 2 forwards in for a defender and a midfielder. So I'm assuming you've probably got a Shees or was able to throw back there. But if you've got too many forwards, I wouldn't do it. And yeah, just have to obviously wait and see with Oliver, but it looks like he will be out. So yeah, you've probably got to trade and be aggressive around this point, heading into buys. So yeah, I like it. Butters and Smith are good options. So I do like it. Aaron Christian, if Oliver's okay, should we pay up for the likes of Wardlaw, Weddle, and Humphrey? Cheap rookies with good job security not around at the moment. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a very good point. Wardlaw, yep, great target. Weddle and Humphrey are very interesting. So got negative break evens and they're over 400k, but they've got roles. They're in the best 22 at the moment. So I don't mind if you want to go on both those. You could go one of them this week and Wardlaw next week. I'm going Wardlaw because I think Fahey will get a game and I think he'll hold his spot, which means he'll be the downgrade option for me the next week. So that's why I'm doing it. But yeah, if you want to go Weddle and Humphrey, they're both good options with negative break evens. But yeah, you just have to make sure Oliver's okay. Apparently he still did train, but I do think he'll be out. They're not going to risk him. Why would you risk him? Michael Anderson, do we hold Clary or trade in a Walsh or Greens? This is actually a good thing I'm actually doing the Q&A now. It's actually worked out all right in this sense, but with all the Oliver news. But if Oliver's out, if he's out, it's so hard because Melbourne have been a bit vague in terms of how long he's going to be out for. It could be anything from 1 to 3 weeks. So I'd still trade, I think. He's worth so much money. That's so much cash on your bench you've got to be holding. So I would trade. In terms of who you get out of Walsh and Green, again, they've got the same buy, so you're probably fine with that buy there. Out of the two, part of me leans to Walsh if he gets that forward status, but there's a chance he doesn't. I think he's up. I think I saw a tweet earlier. He's up at 34%. So he's actually just dropped below. So he'd have to play at least probably 40% forward to make sure that he gets it. So you could go Walsh to make sure maybe bank on the fact that I'm hoping he plays forward and gets that forward status. And especially if Hewitt stays in 22 and they got too many midfielders, then maybe he does play forward. But yeah, Tom Green's a good option as well. I think they're both good options. I still think for me, if I've got Clayton Oliver, my number one target, probably premium midfielder this week, is probably Rory Laird. With his run coming up, it's good. He's got a really good buy, really helpful round 14 buy. With primo mids, there's not many primo mids that have got that round 14 buy. So I would go Laird. Merrett, a great option as well. I probably wouldn't bring in Brayshaw just because he's got the buy next week. You probably want to wait just one more week and then bring him in. But yeah, probably Laird's the one that I would do if you're looking for that. But if not, I would go Walsh. I think Walsh is with that potential forward status. Andrew Griffiths, I'm doing Pedler to Humphrey and Warple to Laird. Tick, tick, love them. Love those trades. You could hold Warple if you want to hold him to his buy, but I'm happy to go to Laird. So that's fine, Andrew, there. And then you also said, could do JVR and Pedlar to Fahey and Steele, but bench would be cooked. Don't like 200k rooks on the bench. Yeah, I agree. I would probably do the Humphrey move this week and do Warple to Laird. And then next week, you can go someone down to Fahey because we need to know. We don't want to bring him in for a week. The reason I'd be pretty sold on waiting a week on Fahey's because we don't want to bring him in and then next week he gets dropped. We want to see him 1 week, him play well, then him hold his spot, and then we can launch into him next week as a downgrade option because we don't want to bring him in. He's got around 15 buy as well, which a lot of rookies have got at the moment. So that's going to be a bit of a stumbling block for some coaches that they're going to have to be a bit careful with all these round 15 players they bring in. But yeah, I'd do JVR to Fahey next week or something. So, and plus as well, Steele, he's got the bye next week as well, Andrew. So I'd wait for him to play this week, see how he goes. If he looks good and his knee isn't bothering him, it didn't look like on the weekend, looked fine. But if his knee isn't bothering him, then you can launch into him round 13 because he'll be a good target in round 13 if all goes well from here. Jay Singh, should I go to Hobbs or save cash and go Humphrey on field? Oh, God, that's a tough call. You're going to get more cash gen from Humphrey. You're probably going to get more points from Hobbs. Because you're playing them on field, I think it's Hobbs for me. I'd rather have Hobbs on field longer term. I'd rather be stuck with Hobbs than Humphrey on field because we have seen Humphrey can put up a bad score. He's looked really good the last 3 weeks. But yeah, I would be doing, I'd be going Hobbs for on field. Jacko, Hind and Rick, I hope I said that correctly, Jack. I apologise if I've got that wrong. Trade Clary for Merrett, Butters, or others. As I was saying before, I think Laird's my number one. But if you've already got Laird, because a few people do have Laird, Merrett would be close next. Steele's got a good matchup. I just couldn't bring him in around 12 bye, though. If you've got no one playing in the round 12 bye, then you can launch into Steele, potentially, or Brayshaw. Brayshaw, I'd have Brayshaw over Steele if you can afford Brayshaw, just without that injury risk. But yeah, for me, Laird's probably there. Merritt's probably another good option as well. Butters is good as well if it works for your buy, but I think round 14 will be really handy for coaches. So I'd probably go, Merrett or Laird for me. Says, who are the best options under 814k for any position, preferably not from the round 12 buy? 814k, not with the round 12 buy. So you got, is Bailey Smith below that price? Let me have a look. I'll get it up on my phone. Because Bailey Smith could be below that price, but he might have gone up as well because he had that good score on the weekend. So what was it? Under 814k. No, so Bailey Smith's above that. Yep, there you go. 814. Oh, you just miss out on Robert Newell. You probably want to wait till after the bye. Park, you want to wait till after the bye. Whitfield, I still like Whitfield with that great run coming. Still had 30 disposals on the weekend, which was good. Still taking kick-ins. I still like Whitfield. Says if you don't have Whitfield there. Tom Stewart, if you don't have him, just with that buy. I know he got a 72 on the weekend, but he'll be better than that. I just like the buy around 30. It's going to be really helpful if you don't have him. You still could bring in Will Day. I'm still not off him. I still think he can be a top 6 defender. He's still got that role. He got tagged on the weekend. So for me, I still like Will Day if you don't have him. If I knew Gorn was going to get forward status, if you're looking at a ruck, then you could go him. But we obviously just don't know. Dom Sheed, dare I say, could you launch into him? Obviously with 2 pretty good scores since he's been back. The 81 as well wasn't too bad. He's got Eston Collingwood, Adelaide before his bye. You'd be getting him for cash, 40 break even. You could launch in. I'm not as confident, but is a potential option. I still think looking at these options, Whitfield would be my pick. Obviously, I'd prefer to wait 1 more week on Darcy Cameron. You got Witherden there that went up a fair bit in coin this week, 52k, break even to 38 if you want to be a bit unique there. Gus Brayshaw, I think, after this week could be a good option. He might play a lot more midfield, especially if Oliver's out. And yeah, you're going obviously down to those options that we spoke before, like your Caldwells and Hobbs and guys like that. So if you're looking for a premium type player, I think it's Whitfield. But if you're just sort of looking for any player, then it could be one of those cheaper guys. Porter Dennis, g'day, Bales. How you doing? Good, Porter. Hope you're doing well, mate. I did see you're in the top 50 now, mate. I had a look at the top 50 and I saw your name. So good work on doing really well so far, mate. So good work. I wish I was up there with you. Says, is it okay if I have Ashcroft, Wardlaw, and Wilmot on field after trades this week? I would try and get Wilmot off your field, says. Wardlaw and Ashcroft's fine. A lot of people got Wardlaw on field. and I think he'll score well enough on field. And Ashcroft, obviously, we've seen how good he is. Wilmot, yeah, I'd be trying to get rid of him off your field. So if you've got someone like a Fiorini or someone like that says that you're trading, I would rather trade Wilmot up to a Hobbs or a Caldwell or someone, get them on field instead of Wilmot, because I'm just not sure what his scoring is going to be like moving forward from here. Says, I'm so glad I captained Merrett. I told you he would go 137. He got better, moved up 8-3-1 up to 8-3-1-1. Should I still be going for your captain option trade-ins or a straight bat now that I'm in top 10K? So I think it just depends. Depends on the matchups. Depends how you're feeling for the week. It's always go with your gut on that one. Like you messaged me and you said that you were going Merrett captain because you sort of good pod captain and you saw him going huge, and credit to you, he went well. So, and it was a very, very good move you went in captain. So, yeah, I would just play on gut instinct, really. You don't have to straight bat everything because if you risk something and it goes well for you, you might rise up more. But on the other hand, you risk it goes the other way, then you'll drop. So, yeah, it just depends. Just literally case-by-case basis, I think. Porter Dennis, if Clary's out, do I go him and JB out for Bailey Smith and Ben Hobbs, or do I go Merrett and Humphrey? Again, depending on, this is very dependent on buys because you've got round 15, round 14 compared to round 14 and round 13. So, for your buys, it's probably going to be Merrett and Humphrey, but I think I'd still rather Smith and Hobbs. So, Porter, if it doesn't matter for buys, I think Smith and Hobbs, just because I'd rather Hobbs on field over Humphrey. But yeah, it is a tough call because a lot of people probably say Merrett and Humphrey because you get that premium midfielder, but I do like Hobbs on field more. Lucas, do you think Zach Merrett for Andrew Brayshaw and Hollands for Wardlaw? Are you saying trade out Andrew Brayshaw, Lucas? I wouldn't be doing that. I know he's got the bye next week, but you're not trading out Andrew Brayshaw. No way. I'd probably still hold him as well because I think he'll play midfield, so I wouldn't be doing that, no. Hollands for Wardlaw's fine, but the other trade I wouldn't do. Andrew Gers, what trades are you looking at? I'm looking at this stage, pretty much the same as last night, probably a Pedler down to a Wardlaw and Jinby up to Hobbs. And bank about 100 or so K ready for next week because my plan will be to bring in Cameron and English to get my two ruckmen playing next week. And then probably just a downgrade as well, probably like a Fahey. I'll probably go someone like it could be a more expensive rookie, but go early just to get that cash. Like a Wilmot down to Fahey might give me enough cash to do a little bit of a swap there. But that's what I'm looking at doing at this stage. It's only 6:23. Bloody hell. Couple more questions here, then we'll wrap up as well. Do you think Setterfield for Andrew Brayshaw and Hollands for Wardlaw's good trades? If you're going Setterfield to Andrew Brayshaw, yes. And Hollands to Wardlaw, yes. I like those trades. But if you're going, obviously, bring Setterfield in for Andrew Brayshaw, I wouldn't be trading Andrew Brayshaw, but I'm assuming you are saying Setterfield to Andrew Brayshaw. So, yeah, Setterfield trading out to Brayshaw and then Hollands trading out to Wardlaw. I like those trades. Trent Paul, is Oliver in? If Oliver's injured, you would have to think he won't be back until after his bye. That's what I would think as well, because round 14 bye, they've got 11, 12, they've got 3 games and they've got the bye. Give him the extra 4 weeks. He's your star player. I would imagine he'll probably miss 4 weeks with the bye there. But Oliver's one of those guys that doesn't want to miss, and he may push to come back next week or whatever. So just we'll have to see. But I think you trade out just based on the uncertainty and the fact that you can essentially go for any midfielder that you want. So I would trade personally. In the limited formats like your Super Coach and your Real Dream Team, I'll probably keep Oliver just because limited trades. If he's out for a week, you get him back. But if not, it's just best 18. So I'd probably hold in the limited trade formats, but I'd trade in fantasy because trade them, lose them or lose them. So I'd just trade. Says, I need to trade Ellis and Holland. So who wouldn't I trade out of those two so I can get Wilman off field? I would keep Ellis. I know Ellis has been frustrating, but he's got the round 13 bye at the end of the day. He's a player that can pop a really good score. I would be holding him through these buys. You might take cash hit, but I'd rather Ellis and Hollands to someone. Sorry, I'd rather Ellis to someone and have Wilmot to Hobbs or someone. I'd rather them on field than Wilmot, and you're going to get more points. So I would keep Ellis there, say. So there you go. I reckon that's all the comments there. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, as I said before, apologies for the audio stuff from last night. It was a bit frustrating and stuff. So, but yeah, we've got it. We liked it tonight. I know the audio wasn't great, but hopefully you guys still got plenty of good information through there says I can go Wilmot to Wardlaw and Hollands to Humphrey and bank 200k. Already have Hobbs. Okay, you already got Hobbs. I don't think you could afford. Oh, could you afford Caldwell? Says I don't mind Caldwell at 600k. I'm interested to talk to people this week about Caldwell and see what their thoughts are because I like Caldwell. He had a lot of CBAs and got a big score, and if these guys are going to be out, but yeah, you could go Humphrey, make cash, and bank 200k because banking cash for next week will be pretty good actually. I think. So a lot of people probably do. A lot of Darcy owners will do that shuffle next week to English, and then wanting to get Cameron as well. So yeah, you could bank cash. I don't mind that as well. So probably Humphrey's probably the right call. So yeah, I can. Yeah, Caldwell or Humphrey. I'm not sure. That's a very good question. I might have to pitch that to some people and see what they think. But maybe ask that question on Friday when we do the live Twitter space, obviously on YouTube, and I'll get people's thoughts on that because it'll be a lot more information about the week. We'll have a bit more better judgment later in the week. So, but yeah, as I said, appreciate you guys tuning in. If you did enjoy the video, apologies, as I said, but if you did want to support the channel extra, obviously, thumbs up, leave a like on the video, very much appreciated. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, bottom right-hand corner. We're on our way to 1,100 subscribers. I think we're less than 30 subscribers from that. So if you can help me reach 100, that'd be very much appreciated. Then hopefully we can get to 2K, hopefully in no time. That'd be fantastic. But appreciate all you guys as usual. Turn notifications so you don't miss when I go live or upload any other content in the future. Potentially daily news recap about tonight. So I might be doing daily news recap again. Obviously I finished my uni stuff, so I've got a bit more time, so I'm able to do that. It doesn't take too long. So that'll be up hopefully later this evening. And then tomorrow will be the round review where I'll just do my own team, go through all my players and stuff like that. It was going to be tonight, but obviously with the audio issues, I had to push it back a day for this one. And then obviously Wednesday, everybody's favorite. Everyone loves it, which is great. The trade talk video on Wednesday. So make sure you tune to that at 4:30 p.m. at Adelaide time, but 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So Nathan Cranfield, would you go Chincotta down to Fleeton and JJ to Butters? Yeah, I like it. If Faye gets named, I'd rather go Faye over Fleeton. Even though Faye hasn't played any games yet, I'd rather Faye because he's probably got better job security than Fleeton if he was to come in, because I think he'll play better. So I would do Chincotta to Faye if he gets named, and then JJ to Butters. I like those trades, Nathan. So yeah, beautiful. Thanks guys for tuning in. Appreciate you guys as always. And yeah, we'll catch you guys tomorrow for the round review. So I'm out. Cheers. Oh, social media links in the description below. Make sure you go and follow them as well. Thanks, guys. Cheers.